So here are three order of operations problems. And by order of operations problems, I mean we've got some arithmetic problems that involve several of our basic operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And you can see that each of these problems has a bunch of those. So we want to remind ourselves of the proper order that we need to do this. And we have this little acronym to help us remember, and you may remember it as PEMDAS, or you might remember it using the acronym Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally, or some other way, but it's designed to help us remember the order that we need to do things in. So as we go through those letters, we see what we need to do. We first need to work in parentheses and simplify anything inside parentheses. And if there are parentheses inside of parentheses, then we're going to work inside the innermost parentheses first. Then we need to do exponents, convert them to their numerical equivalent. Then we're going to do multiplication and division, but it's not necessary that multiplication happens before division. They happen at the same time, moving left to right across the problem. So don't get confused and think it's always multiplication and division because of this little PEMDAS rule. Multiplication and division happen at the same time, and then we finally get to addition and subtraction, and the same holds for them. They happen at the same time, whichever comes first, moving left to right. So these three problems that we have in front of us, if we were to solve them, we're going to start. Let's start with this one right here. And so order of operations would say there are no parentheses. So then we move to the exponents, and of course this is the exponent, the only exponent, 2 raised to the 5th power. So in other words, 5 2's multiplied. And so if we were to do that, that's the only thing we're going to change here. 2 times 2 plus, I'm just going to put in place of 2 to the 5th, that's equal to 32. You can check that out by multiplying 2 times itself 5 times, but we've taken care of the exponents. Now we move to multiplication and division. Now looking there, there's only one multiplication, and so we're just going to do that. And so it's a 6 minus 2 times 2 is 4, and then plus 32. Notice how I'm just doing one thing at a time to make sure I don't make a mistake, and I would encourage you to do that. Just make one change or handle one type of operation at a time. Now we get to addition and subtraction, and remember, we can do addition and subtraction at the same time, but we do them in the order that they appear. So sometimes subtraction will happen before addition. This is a good example because see that all we're left is addition and subtraction, but if we move left to right, we're going to do the subtraction first. So it'll be a 6 minus 4 is a 2, and then plus 32, and then finally we can just add those to get a final answer of 34. Alright, so let's go to this one, and this one involves fractions, which is going to make us remember all of those rules for fractions as we work through the PEMDAS guidelines. So we first say, okay, there are no parentheses, no exponents, there's only multiplication. Now you might be saying, aren't these fractions division? Well, yes, but in this case we're just going to treat them as numbers and only view that one multiplication. So we've got to do that multiplication. So 3/4 times 1/2. We know how to multiply fractions. We would cross cancel or cross simplify if we could. There is nothing to do. Those don't share a factor. Those don't share a factor. So we can't cross cancel. So we're just going to come in here and do top times top, which will give us a 3, over bottom times bottom, which gives us an 8, and then a plus 2/3. And so now all that's left is an addition. And so with the addition, we remember we must have common denominators, and in this case we can find the least common denominator of 3 and 8 would be a 24. So I want to make it so that this first fraction has a denominator of 24 and the second fraction has a denominator of 24. And the way we do that is we multiply this one by 3 and by 3, to get 9 over 24, and then we multiply this one by 8 and 8 to get 16 over 24. And now that they have a common denominator, we can just add them, 25 over 24, and we'll leave it as an improper fraction. But I guess just for fun, if we needed to change it, it would be 1 and 1/24. Finally, this problem. Now this problem's it has some things going that we have to just remember. One of the things that it has happening here is we're going to treat the top part of this fraction as if it had parentheses. Now some might argue that that's not the case, but we're going to treat it that way. So there's a set of parentheses around the top and there's a set of parentheses around the bottom. Now that's important because those parentheses are telling me do this first. So let's do the bottom first, and it doesn't matter if we do the top or the bottom first. I'm going to do the bottom first so we can get it out of the way. 17 minus 5. Now again, you might be saying, well, that's a subtraction. Don't I need to do some of these other things first? No, because we are working in parentheses. So 17 minus 5 is 12. The top is going to stay just like this with these absolute value symbols around the 13 minus 5. And remember, there's this little set of invisible parentheses there telling us, hey, you got to do all that stuff. So we're going to now work on top. As we look at the top, a couple things stand out. First of all, the absolute values, they get treated like parentheses. So that means we're going to clean up or simplify everything inside them first. So plus absolute value, and then 13 minus 5 is of course 8, plus 4 squared all over 12. Right? We treat the absolute values as if they were a set of parentheses. Now let's make note of this right here while we're here. Absolute value of 8 is just 8. So we should probably just replace that with 8. So 16 plus 8 plus 4 squared. Okay, now we've finished all our grouping inside the top, and so now we're ready to go on to exponents. And so we have the 4 squared, and we know 4 squared is going to be 16, and that's all over 12. And so we're going to work it out this way. Now we can add across the top. 16 plus 8 plus 16. So 16 plus 8 is 24. Plus 16 more is 40 over 12. Now, this is a fraction, so that means we need to reduce it, write it in its simplest form. And if we look at this, we can say, hey, I see that 4 is the largest divisor of both numbers. 4 will go in there 10 times, 4 will go in there 3 times, and so we're left with a 10/3 as our final answer. And so that's going to give us our final answer to that problem.